Happy Thursday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We appreciate it. If you were looking for news tonight, that was canceled out of an abundance of caution because 24 hours before they were supposed to go on air, a big old hurricane, Cat 3, was landing in Florida. And as far as we know, everyone down there is safe and sound. The studio was checked out. That's safe and sound. So News Tonight should be back without any issues, barring any other storms, next Thursday night at this time. We usually air Deep in the Plus on Wednesday nights, but because of the catastrophic event happening at the time, didn't seem right to do it. So we've moved it to tonight. Hope that's okay with you guys. We have a great movie to talk to you about tonight. We, on Deep in the Plus, go deep into the Disney Plus catalog and find a movie or a TV show to talk about. And with me tonight is Mr. Ron Deanna. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good, man. I notice you are also, the movie we have chosen for tonight is Blackbeard's Ghost, and I noticed that you nor I are wearing a Blackbeard's Ghost t-shirt. I'm going with a We Wants the Redhead. You got Goonies. I guess we're just doing a pirate theme. Is that where we're going with this?
Yeah, this is actually about as far as I go with the pirate outfit on the cruise line too. So,
Nice. Again, hope everybody is safe after Hurricane Milton hit. Again, everyone that we know from WDWNT has reported in and is okay. So, I know that there are a lot of people who are without power still in Florida, and again, we don't dismiss all of that. We just have a silly little web show that we put on for about an hour on Wednesday nights, and again tonight, Thursday night, hopefully, which is a little bit of a distraction. Ron, I know that you did a review of this in a different format at a different time for Blackbeard's Ghost. My problem is that I've never seen this movie. And in my head, this movie was like Treasure Island. It was like a more of a serious adventure movie. And then when I see that Dean Jones is in it, I'm like, well, that can't be right. That's not, Dean Jones is not going to be a serious guy. So this one definitely gives more of a Shaggy Dog, Computer that Wore Tennis Shoes, a lot of those classic Disney Robert Stevenson movies. But I was expecting something a little bit. I hadn't seen it. I don't know how I missed this one, but I was expecting something a little bit more serious, and it's a fun little movie.
it's one of the weirdest movies from kind of that lost era of Disney films. It's one of the last ones Walt put into production. Like he optioned the book like in not too soon before he died, and it really does fit that late '60s, early '70s kind of feel. I mean, there's some things that are feel a little bit weird about it, but it could have easily been, as you said, like set at like Medfield or Midvale or whatever all those computer wore tennis shoes kind of colleges were, as it just really had that same feel to it, not like Treasure of Matacumbe or you know like an actual pirate story.
Yeah, you know what? Again, I was ready. I was ready for that kind of a thing, and so I kind of had. I'm going to be honest with you, sort of put this one off a while because it's been on my list to do. But we were looking for stuff for Halloween. We've gone through in our catalog so much of the classic Disney Halloween stuff: Hocus Pocus 2, Halloween Town, and so every year we try to do some spooky stuff around October. And I was like, Blackbeard's Ghost. That's spooky. I don't think it's really spooky. It's more, again, funny. And honestly, I don't know who could have been better for this than Dean Jones because he already had the chops from like every other movie like this that he had done. As he's interacting with Blackbeard's Ghost, and we'll talk about the overall theme of this in a minute. But as he's interacting with Blackbeard's Ghost, it felt like he was interacting with Herbie. No one believes that Herbie's real. No one believes that Herbie could have done this thing. He's talking to Herbie. It's very similar, like kind of almost foreshadowing of what he's going to go through for the Love Bug, don't you think?
Yeah, it's very kind of formulaic for these kind of movies, in a good way. I mean, this is what Disney built their live action like life on at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that were weird to me is there were no animals, and it wasn't focused on like the kids or the like teenagers. It was all about the adults, which is kind of the odder part for this era. but
Can I show this? This is a poster for the movie, and again, Disney used to release and re-release all these movies, but this is a poster for this movie. Gangway, Blackbeard's on his wildest spree in 200 years as he panics police, humiliates hoods, and turns a track meet into a laugh riot. It's like, you won't believe Blackbeard's ghost. Like, I can almost hear the trailer for this in my head. Because again, it's that Disney feel like we were talking about. It's that Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, the Dexter Riley trilogy, the Flubber, it's
yeah.
all of this stuff, and it feels very Disney. And so again, I don't know where I missed this in my Disney education in not seeing this movie.
It's not one I grew up with either. It's actually one my wife introduced me to. She apparently had like the clamshell or something like. So I didn't watch this till maybe 10 years ago or so. So I never see because it is even in that era, it's kind of a forgettable one. I mean, it's fun and all that, but it's not anything that like Herbie had so many sequels. Dexter Riley had so many sequels.
Yeah.
This this is kind of on that darn cat kind of
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
pantheon.
But it's that same kind of thing. But this is the Disney that is nostalgic for me that I love. So as we talk about this tonight, I want to kind of go through at the end and decide, like, is this the kind of thing that I'm just nostalgic for this formula, or does this still work in 2024? So kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we're talking about this. As I'm looking at the Disney Plus explanation for this, the short blurb is: a track coach inherits the mischievous ghost of famed pirate Blackbeard. What? That's inherits that seems a little bit off, but it's funny.
So does Disney Plus have the actual trailer, or is it just like a like one of their like first couple minutes trailer?
Yeah, it's the promo thing. It's a
Okay,
promo of the release.
because one of the few things I could find about this online searching was apparently the original theatrical trailer, and it's like 30 seconds of other stuff and then 2 minutes of just like a montage of the track meet. And that's the
Yeah.
entire trailer that they show. And it's just so weird. But it's just a fun romp, and that's all I could
Yeah. Well, and
think
again,
about.
this particular clip, this is the promo clip. This is what they have on Disney Plus. But as they're driving through this neighborhood, this looks like every Disney neighborhood. We were talking about that darn cat. We're talking about like this. This looks like the every Disney neighborhood from every movie at that time, which it probably is.
And there's actually a shot. It was a shot on. It was four different sound. It was using all four sound stages I know on the lot. And there's actually a shot where they're watching the dean and
Yeah, I know
Planchette are
exactly what you're going
watching
to say.
him. It is clearly, if you know the Disney lot, it is clearly like the ink and paint building behind them.
Well, and you know what struck me about that was I was wondering if it was like they had. I made a note about that, and I know we're kind of jumping around here at this point, but I made a note about that because it felt like they maybe shoehorned it in, like maybe there was supposed to be some other scene there, and they instead like went and shot a B shot because it doesn't seem needed, if that makes sense.
I mean, it was
And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's this scene where he had just walked off the track, and they're looking at down at him through the window. There it is.
yeah.
Yes, you're right. This is the Disney Studio lot in Burbank. This is it. Like this is the where the offices are, where like you said, ink and paint and the animation building.
It was almost entirely shot there. I don't think I'm not even sure there was much like other than like the track meet stuff. I don't think there was anything that was kind of location at all, from my understanding on this one.
Well, and there's a lot of matte paintings and again things that are typical of the time, but I think a lot of that stuff really looked pretty sharp. Let's start from the beginning of this movie because, like I said, even in the beginning of this movie, it paints it the same way that I would expect them to paint a serious adventure
Yeah.
film. We have this crawl, there's ominous music, there's shadows, like the whole thing, it feels like this is going to be an adventure movie and not like the laugh romp that you said it mentioned it could be. So also, if you were to just show me this text and we were going into this movie, I would say we're about to see Saludos Amigos or Three Caballeros. For some reason, that it just kind of gives that vibe.
Yeah, with a bit. Oh, I was gonna say 20,000 Leagues with the ocean in the background or something like that.
Yeah, good point. Um, this movie stars obviously we mentioned Peter Ustinov, Dean Jones, and Suzanne Plachette. I remember Suzanne Plachette from Kids Look It Up, the original Bob Newhart show. She was Bob's wife on the original show. She came back and did a bit in the end of Newhart. And so I think she was probably a big deal at the time. And I'm pretty sure, didn't she do one of the Herbie movies as well?
I don't remember the Herbie movies. They were never my favorite. I know I've seen them all, but I just don't remember them.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy. But again, Suzanne Plachette, Dean Jones, Peter Ustinov, they're most of this movie. There are a lot of other people you kind of recognize when you're in here. But one actor in particular that I wanted to point out was Elsa Lanchester, who was, Katie and Anna in Mary Poppins. She was in this. The clip that you're seeing is from the Lucille Ball show where she was in that for a bit. But the thing that I didn't know about her is that she was the bride of Frankenstein. I like I did not know that.
Yeah,
So when I was looking her up, I was like, wait a minute, what? How is that possible that Katie and Anna was the bride of Frankenstein?
yeah, um, yeah. I watched some D23 intro to this, and they mentioned that, and it just kind of left me like, huh. Well, I mean, I guess that was almost 40 years before this, so yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like that was actually what. Actually, it's not that far before this. What was Bride of Frankenstein? Mid 30s.
Yeah, it was. And this was 1968. That darn cat, she was the nosy neighbor in that. That was 1965. And then Mary Poppins was 1964. So, I mean, Disney all
I
over
mean,
the place.
this is one of those movies they just found the actors that were hanging around the set, or just filmed it. Hey, you over here. We're not casting. Just come on, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, are you already here to do a movie? But the other part about that is, as we know, like Tim Burton has his go-tos, the people that he always brings into his movies, and
Yeah.
I assume Robert Stevenson was no different. And a lot of
Did
the
you have to
movies.
look up that since this was Blackbeard's ghost? Did you have to look up if he was related to Robert Louis Stevenson?
No,
Because
no, did
I
you?
did, and he's not. Yeah,
Okay,
I did,
I
and he's not. But it was one of those things like it would be a nice coincidence, but
it's too common a name that I wouldn't have gone there, but I get where you're going with that. For me, the thing is that Robert Stevenson, again, feels like he sort of created like the nostalgia of my childhood. Again, I didn't see most of these movies first run, but when I was a kid, and I think you may have remembered this too, is before VHS and before DVD, Disney would re-release movies to theaters. That's how you would see them again, is they would re-release these movies to theaters or put them on the Wonderful World of Disney. So in a lot of cases, that's where I saw a lot of
yeah.
these was re-releases into theaters, especially because my dad was nostalgic for them and he would take me to them. So, but I feel like Robert Stevenson directed like what I think of as the pure ultra Disney nostalgic era of movies, because in Search of the Castaways, The Absent-Minded Professor, Kidnapped, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Mary Poppins, The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, the Monkey's Uncle, they must have like just had him on retainer. And like you said, a lot of these had the same actors in them, so they were probably like, hey, look, I just did that darn cat. I know you were, the nosy neighbor on that one. Do you mind coming back? I'm doing another movie. It's called Blackbeard's Ghost. The Gnome Mobile, The Love Bug, Bedknobs and
There's like
Broomsticks,
20 of
Herbie
them or
Rides
so,
Again.
right?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. So all the way through the Shaggy DA in 1976, and then Robert Stevenson passed away in 1986. So he was working a long time there. But also he did Old Yeller. He did a movie where he shot a dog, and I'm not okay with that.
Hey, spoilers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, that is a spoiler. Sorry about that. Never
No,
mind.
I mean that spoils your childhood.
Oh, my bad. Okay. But again, the cast is Disney. I hesitate to say legend because I'm not really sure how many of them have been named legends. Obviously, bless you. Obviously, Dean Jones was, named a legend. Fred McMurray, who, was the very first legend. A lot of these people who were in these movies were made legends, but this is Disney royalty that is in this movie, and I think that is something that again shook me when I'm watching a movie I've never seen before. And going, wait a minute, here's all these people who were, associated with other movies that I enjoyed seeing. So again, here's another description from this movie. In the early years of the 18th century, this was at the beginning, lived the pirate Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard. Before this movie, had you ever heard that Edward Teach was Blackbeard? Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
knew that one,
my
but
bad.
I like history. I worked pirates and stuff back in the day too. So, so I
Okay.
knew a little bit of pirate stuff.
Well, and Disney has a huge history of pirates too. Obviously, Treasure Island, which Treasure Island, Robert Newton's portrayal of Long John Silver is credited as the invention of pirate speech.
Which is a West Country accent, really. The British know it as a West Country accent.
Yeah.
It's just one of those weird things uh, that, like they'd consider it a farmer, not a pirate, and that just became what it is. So,
But the use of R's and other phrases associated with pirates were from Robert Newton's performance in the 1950 Disney Treasure Island film. I always want to say Treasure Planet because that's hashtag my treasure island telling. That one or Muppets. But again, you got the Treasure Island. You've got you've got the Pirates of the Caribbean, the attraction, and the movies in modern day, and the Blackbeard's ghost, and it does seem like pirates are very synonymous with Disney in general. So interesting that they would have chosen this. Also, this movie was released 2 years after Walt's death, so I feel like it was probably in production or at least in its infancy in the
he did
beginning.
start it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was one of the last things he started. Um, he optioned the book himself. He was the one who went in and picked and said, like, I want this to be a movie. So
Yeah.
I think it might have even been like an advanced copy he got. This is just going from what I remember from that D23 like snippet. So yeah, it said he got an advanced copy of the book. He found the author, says, I want to make this movie. That was late '65, and so he was just starting like pre-production when he died eventually.
Yeah. This scene that opens the movie where we see Dean Jones pulls up in his convertible. We don't really have any context yet of what's going on. He's in some kind of a New England town, and he pulls in to a gas station. And when he pulls into the gas station, the first thing I thought that I wanted to talk about tonight is I assume most of you who are watching don't remember full service gas stations. Like,
Unless you're all from Jersey.
yeah, where on the turnpike where they like require that. But the funny part
Actually, we
was
still
like,
have a weird amount here.
do you really?
Yeah,
Seeing this
it's all the
kid come
little old
out.
ones like this, kind of.
Yeah, so the kid comes out and he goes, "Hey, do you mind pumping the gas yourself?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, shudder to think that you'd have to pump gas yourself." But yeah, so they used to, we saw in Back to the Future where the entire team comes out and they check the tires and they open the hood and check the oil and all that stuff for you as a full service. But in this one, it's a small town gas station he pulls into. He's asking for instructions. He's trying to get this kid to lift the hood, and then he finds out from the kid that he's supposed to be the big shot putter from the track team that he's here to coach. Track teams. What a random thing.
Yeah, I don't know if that was in the book or they because Disney did a lot of that with these like athletic events. It's just were they bigger back then? I mean,
I don't know.
they
That's what I
talk
was
about
thinking
football
too.
being also like was there a lot of illegal college sports betting because that seems to be another staple of these movies about like,
Yeah,
I mean, gambling and running numbers and stuff was a lot of what the mob did back in like the 60s before they got into the drug trade. So yeah, that was definitely part of it. But like all these colleges, like aren't like three of the Dexter or like two of the three Dexter Riley, they're betting on like the mob is betting on like the mathletics competition or whatever it
sure,
is.
sure,
And yeah,
sure.
it's all that
Uh,
stuff. And it's just like,
yeah. By the way, tell me this doesn't look typical of the era. This Disney, like, okay, we're sitting in the car, driving along. The cheesy, background. Yeah, they were
oh
awful
yeah,
close too.
standard.
By the way, for a car, they're
Yeah,
awful close.
can't get too wide of a shot or you'll see the edge of the rear projection screen.
Yeah, I guess so. And so yeah, so they pull into this inn. He's asking him for directions to Blackbeard's inn, and they get there, and through exposition, we're hearing that yeah, the daughters of the Buccaneers are these like the descendants of Blackbeard and his crew, and they run the place, and this is such a typical trope. There's a countdown clock, and we've got to get the money before the countdown ends. Like that is such an overused trope, I think. And obviously this is 1968, maybe they invented it, I don't know, but the idea, the Muppets, it's we got to get the money to save the theater, or what was the bowling movie, Alley Cat Strike, where it's they got to get the money to save the bowling alley, or it's going to, yeah, it's crazy.
It's it's just a good MacGuffin in general. I mean, you just it sets the plot going. Now, tell me though, doing a theme of this hotel, like this inn as a hotel, would not be amazing.
I know an empty piece of property sitting right off to the side of Hollywood Studios that could be rethemed pretty easily. The Galactic Star Cruiser. Like, let's just you know, make it a Blackbeard's Ghost Hotel. That would probably do so much better. No, that
Well,
wouldn't.
I just mean like the whole pirate themed hotel built out of pirate ships run by old ladies who are both Blackbeard's descendants, but also kind of really into him in a really
Yeah.
kind of oddly creepy way, especially at the end where he's like, "Ah, oh, you such lovely girls. Mwah, this is for you, my descendants." It's like, whoa, like just think about that for a minute.
Dude, I have too many questions about the end. I have too many questions about the end, and I guess I'm going to have to move through this a little bit more quickly. But too many questions about the end. One thing I wanted to mention, I'm looking in chat. Carrie says the end feels very Candle Shoe, which is funny to me for two reasons. One is that Candle Shoe is a movie you and I reviewed, that you suggested we review, by the way. Second
Yeah,
is I had never seen Candleshoe before you and I watched it. And again, I had a very big misconception about what Candleshoe was, because in my head, Candleshoe was like Pollyanna. It was a Victorian age, turn of the century little girl, and that's not at all what it was. So again, it's
yeah, and
funny to
yeah,
me to bring that one up because I don't know.
and it's another one my wife introduced me to because she watched all of these. Like, I mean,
Over and over.
my childhood was watching Die Hard. My parents were a little and like Predator. Her parents were a little stricter and not letting her watch R-rated movies when she was like 8. So she got
Yeah.
these.
Okay. Um, they're they get here, and again, through this is the moment, this party where we meet everybody. We learn everything in this scene. Um, it's a fundraiser for the daughters of the Buccaneers, and they're trying to raise money to save their place from this shifty shifty mobster named Silky. What's his last name? It's two S's.
Steve, it's not Steve. It's not Stevens. Silky some. We'll call him Silky
Uh,
Smooth.
Silky Smooth. That is absolutely not his name. It's Silky Seymour. Suddenly
Silky
Seymour.
Seymour.
Yep.
And the least scary, most ineffective mobsters of all time.
Yeah, exactly. So we meet
They
them
look
and
like
we
shoe
see.
salesmen.
and we learn that they're trying to take this land over. We meet the football coach who is in competition because football rules at Godolphin, which is that a real place, Godolphin? I've never heard that name before, and it sounds silly. It almost sounds like you're pretending to be like it's Gandalf. Godolphin.
Go Dolphins!
No, no, it's weird.
I,
So Dean Jones is the new track coach. He's been hired to come and just basically try to make the track team any good at all. They're horrible. And so they've put him up at the Blackbeard's Inn because apparently that's one of the only places to stay here. Then when he gets there, he finds out they're trying to raise this money. He meets the football coach who is, again, kind of butting heads with him because he's like, football rules. He meets the dean who's like, I didn't want you here anyway, but the alumni said that they needed to have somebody here to save the track team. And then we meet the Professor Baker, I believe is her name, the Suzanne Plachette character, who is there because she has an affinity for the Daughters of the Buccaneers, and so she's trying to help them to raise this money.
okay, one thing at that scene where they meet, and there's the blonde. I don't remember. I don't think we even get her name at the kissing booth. Like I
Yes.
thought they were like even watching this again. I'm like thinking, oh yeah, there's going to be some sort of love triangle plot here that they just kind of ignore. The blonde just goes away, but like anything else, like you seem that would be the kind of like he's pursuing her, but the blonde's pursuing him, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, the problem that I have here is the kissing booth. Can you believe this was a thing we used to do as a society? Is $1 a kiss, and he throws a dollar in the bucket and he gives her a kiss, and she's like, "Wait a minute, this seems problematic."
There's still a whole series of young adult novels that got turned into like Netflix movies called The Kissing Booth. I don't know if they have them involved. My wife has watched them, so maybe it's still a thing. There, the few minutes I've watched of it are just like think of Twilight without even the interestingness of vampires.
But in that one, it's like guys and girls, right? In the kissing booth, I feel like.
I did not watch that movie enough to know that. But I just know
That's
there's
fine.
like 5 of the movies or something.
So they have a big auction, and at the auction, they're going to raise money by auctioning off these important pieces of history, which seems like, again, maybe they would have found a better way to do that because these are like authentic relics, 200 years old, and they're selling them off. And there's this bad scene where all of the mobsters come down at Silky's direction to threaten the people in the crowd not to bid on things. But yeah, that seems a little weak. But at least Steve Walker, our hero, Dean Jones, says, no, I'm going to bid $200 for this like warming pan for the bed. And it's just one of these where I'm like, he's a
I
track
just looked
coach
it
in
up.
1968. Does he have enough money to throw $200 around on a on a principle? I don't know. What did you look up?
It it's about 2 grand now.
What?
It's the $200 would be about 2 grand now.
Oh, well, like you mean because of inflation, what would $200 have been in
Yeah.
1968? Yeah, and again, he's a track coach in Godolphin, wherever, and
Somewhat, I think
so
it's the outer. I think it's supposed to be the Outer Banks area and all that.
gotcha. Anyway, so he gets this thing, he sits on it in the room, and again we're hearing things. Suzanne Plachette's character, Professor Baker, introduces him to the idea of why the island has value to Silky, because it's off to its own, it's separated enough from the land that no one understands the laws, therefore he can demolish the building and build a casino.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a little
I
weak, but okay.
I mean, I thought about that for a minute because that's what I do, and I'm like, well, if it was on a state border that was defined by the river cut through it. What state is it in? There are places in the world that are like that. So, like both places are fighting over it, so nobody really has authority.
Yeah. Well, I love that that Suzanne Plachette is like, let me teach you and the people at home how this works. Like, there's this map, and the water used to flow this way, and now it has this value because it's yeah. I mean, it looks like Tom Sawyer Island, by the way, just kind of floating out there, but whatever. So we learn from her about this. We learn from her why Silky wants the land. Then we learn from Elsa Lanchester's character that the about the curse that Blackbeard's 10th bride put on him as he had her burned for witchcraft. She put a curse on him that once he died, he would live in limbo until he did a good deed, which is that's a very specific curse to put on somebody. But okay, I mean, it feels very much like the Beauty
Yeah,
and the
she gave him
Beast,
an out.
right?
It's like, oh, you're burning me alive, but I'm giving you an out here.
Yeah, exactly. Um, did you ever watch Hill Street Blues?
I know I've seen some episodes, but not anything I remember.
This guy was the cop in Hill Street Blues. The guy that's the coach, and he would always like do the roll call and everything and be safe out there or whatever. Um, it's just like I looked at him, I'm like, why do I know that dude? And now I never watched Hill Street Blues, but I think my parents did, and so I recognize him. But there's a lot of these things where you go, oh, don't I know him from somewhere? I feel like that the dean, wasn't he on the Dick Van Dyke Show? Wasn't he
He's the
Mel?
teen was very familiar.
Yeah.
I was trying to pay attention to the names and seeing if I recognized anybody, but other than the like main three casts, I really didn't like know anybody by name.
As she's teaching him about the the 10th bride and the curse, this looks very much like it's straight out of the Haunted Mansion, like the pictures and the
Yeah,
shadows and the stuff in there. It feels very much like uh, something out of the Haunted Mansion. Um,
probably
but
developed. I
she
mean, it was developed at the same time, so
good point. So she maybe Claude Coates had something to do with that painting. So she has this conversation about this curse, and then he sits on this warmer, and it just happens to break in half, and he pulls out what is a spell book, but it's like written on paper, and there are three incantations on there. He skips the one that says turn stuff into gold, and decides to read out loud the one that is about how to bring this spirit into its form, and then here comes Blackbeard's ghost, and so now I'm very upset because Blackbeard seems to have no rules to his existence. And if you've seen the shows I've done with Patrick, Patrick gets mad at me because I always want to know the rules. So Blackbeard has a sword, and the sword is real enough that it can stab Dean Jones.
yeah.
So so that's real. He can't walk through walls because he keeps opening and closing doors, which is probably just for the effect. But he can appear out of thin air. And then sometimes he
Uh,
loses his coat, and then sometimes he doesn't, and then when there's a scene when, and again, I know it's bad. I have a problem, but there's a scene where he goes downstairs because he realizes there's no rum, because Dean Jones doesn't drink. They make it a big point of saying that he doesn't drink. He goes downstairs to get some rum, and he passes by Elsa Lanchester's character here. And then when she comes, he goes and physically gets a bottle of rum. He's holding a physical bottle of rum. Wouldn't it not be floating now when she walked right by him?
yeah,
Rules.
maybe they're used to
Rules, Ron.
that. No, I agree. I 100% agree with you. Like, your
Yeah.
rules don't have to make sense, but they have to be consistent.
Yeah. By the way, Ronald in chat is saying that the sets for this were so detailed, and I mean, and this is a great example of it is these steps and the bar downstairs, and all of the use because they're showing that this is all remnants of ships. The windows are from ships, and the captain's wheel there, and the stairs that he's walking up. It's very very well
I
done.
really, I, I really think if Walt had been alive when this ended, we would have just seen these sets broken down and taken over to the parks like they did with a lot of stuff, like sets from 20,000 Leagues and things like that. I think we would have seen this like transferred as something in
Yeah.
Adventureland, either the one he was building or the one in California.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let's talk about Peter Ustinov's like character of Blackbeard. I don't think they could have come up with a better mix of funny and also like menacing, threatening, dangerous. Like it's a good mix of that. Like he's really pulling off. He's likable, but he's a little scary. But he's also goofy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I mean, he does it so well that I'm just like I'm lost in it.
Yeah, the whole his portrayal is great. I mean, first of all, Ustinov is above this role, so if you'd say that, like he's an actor who's here for like either new like owed Walt a favor or just needed the paycheck kind of thing.
He's above this. How dare you, sir? Uh, yeah. But now he's in a regular, real form. I guess my impression of how this incantation worked was that Blackbeard has always been around, but when Dean Jones's character Steve Walker summons him, then now he can see him. Not that he just brought him from somewhere else, but now he can see them. That he's been in limbo. Nobody's been able to see him, but now they can see him because they talk about how he's been like you can hear him stomping around sometimes.
Yeah, but I always got the impression that he pulled him in from somewhere else when he does the incantation, but then at the end of the movie again, when he has everybody else do the incantation so they could see him, it's very clear it's just to make him appear to you.
Yeah, I guess so. But again, I just assumed it was making him physically manifest the same way he does with the team of women at the end. Is that he was there all along? They just couldn't see him, and then now they could see him. So it was weird. It's weird to me again that he takes up space in this world now. He holds bottles. He does things like that. He's got a real sword, but that he can't walk through a door like ghosts do. He has to open a door. It's again the rules are all over the place. I do think one of my favorite scenes is the one where and it's ridiculous, but where he takes over the car, and it's really more about Peter Ustinov's like character here and what he's doing about taking the wheel. It's like let me have the helm. It was a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
and a very old school editing where you could tell every other frame's been taken out, so the action's a whole lot faster.
Oh, they did a lot of stuff here. They did green screen, they did matte paintings, they did sets, they did yeah. There was a lot of different things that happened. Um,
And some of the effects
here,
are still really good, like the footprint effect,
yeah.
like
Oh,
works
I
so
agree.
well.
Yeah. Um, Here's another place I had an issue with the moment is when he is um, talking to the policeman, and the policeman he's arguing with him. He's wrestling this bottle away from him, which again, great pantomime the way he's doing that. When he's doing all this, the cop pulled him over for driving recklessly. He then smells the alcohol, which he doesn't have any alcohol in his system. And then they have like this fight, and then Blackbeard starts doing things that the cop can't understand. You would think at this point the cop would go, I don't want to report any of this. I'm going to leave. I'm
Yeah,
going to
I'm
just
going
leave you
home.
alone.
Yeah,
That would have been a better
like I'm,
resolution to me in this one.
yeah. I mean, they needed the night in jail to have the whole uh, professor forced to see him kind of thing, but there's
Yeah.
other ways to write around that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I
just for
like,
comic effect.
yeah, I like this. He pulls the pencil and snaps it in two. He pulls the paper. Again, I think they do a really good job of when they are pretending to see him and when they're pretend and when he's not there. Like they do a good job of that. At least it's not super distracting. Um,
No, it. I mean, you can tell things are being yanked by like fishing wire, but it's not like obvious that they're just hanging from a piece most of the time.
Yep. Here are my issues with the jail scene is that he's reading the spell book. Why did he have it with him? And why did they let him keep it? Don't they usually make you remove everything you have on you in jail? Also, he doesn't have his coat, but he also has now a new bottle of rum. Where did he get the new bottle of rum, and why do they not see it? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of inconsistencies in that I'm just distracted by sometimes. Again, it's an old school 1968 Disney fun classic, but I'm like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is this happen here and not there? There's no consistency. Like this bottle of rum that he's got here, where did he get it? And like, how did that happen? I don't know. Before I go any further, I want to thank everybody who's with us here tonight in chat. I see you guys here, and I really wanted to, if you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. It helps people to find us. We love having new people come and watch the show. But before we go any further, Ron, because you've seen this movie more than I have some trivia questions for you, if you don't mind. A couple things I wanted to ask you that I think should be pretty easy for you if you're ready.
Yeah, right. I thought about trying to figure out what you were going to ask, and I just gave up when I was watching it. But all right, let's go for it.
Okay. Professor Baker, who is the Suzanne Plachette's character in here, Joanne Baker. What is her class discipline? What does she teach?
Child psychology.
Very good. There you go. See, I told you these are going to be easy. What is the name of the event that the daughters have that hold to raise money for to save the inn?
Oh,
what
at
do
the
they call
beginning,
it?
I have no idea.
The Buccaneer Bazaar. And actually, there's a weird bit on the sign that I meant to point out earlier, where they've got some stuff on the sign and it says tonight, but it says to space night. Like on the sign, it's like definitely it's a printed banner, but it's separated into two night. I don't know why that would be a thing. Where did Blackbeard say he spent all his treasure?
eBay.
Yep, he bought all the popcorn buckets that they had. That Figment once set him back a pretty penny. Port Royale, because I feel like I've heard Port Royale before in Disney lore. No?
I also think it might have been a real place for pirates.
Yeah, no, I mean, more so than Tortuga, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like I've heard that before.
Actually, going on that, just for a minute, like talking about the real pirate stuff, there was a fact that I heard on a podcast. It's an older episode of a podcast I was listening to that goes into interesting facts. More people have worked on Pirates of the Caribbean movies than there have ever been Pirates of the Caribbean. They estimate there were never, at all the times of the high era of piracy, there were never more than about 4,000 pirates that entire period. So that is less than 2 hours of capacity on the ride. Just think about that.
Fair. I love it. They go to Silky's for dinner because apparently Silky's is the only place to go eat, which also happens to be owned by the town mobster. What do they order for dinner?
Like the land plate or something like that.
Basically, 2 shore dinners.
Shore dinners, yeah.
Which that one again really stood out to me. Like shore dinners, I kind of love that. Like if I mean, I'm not a huge fish person, so if I was headed to Red Lobster, I'd order the shore dinners. Like that's cute. I love that. And the menus were huge, by the way. It was ridiculous.
Yes, they were. Yeah, was that supposed to be a joke, or was that something that was like at the time, or that they had this giant menu and basically they ordered the surf and turf?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm only going to ask you one more because I've got a couple here that are very unfair. So I'm just going to ask you one more. The rum that he kept drinking seemed to be the same rum. Do you remember the brand of rum?
No, I don't. It was probably just... I doubt it was a real brand. So
yeah, I don't think it was actually a real brand. But it was Black Dog rum.
Okay.
You're like,
I actually
okay.
no, because I actually tried to look at it when you had the shot of him up in the prison cell earlier. He had the bottle in hand. I'm like, Rob's going to ask about the bottle. Can I read the label? And I just couldn't.
Here you go. Here's a scene where they show it very clearly. It's almost like it's an ad for it, as if it was a real thing. Black Dog Rum. So,
Probably is now. I'm sure that's
oh, a pirate's
actually
life for me.
it looks like it's black something else rum, and they just put the dog label over it,
It
doesn't it?
does look like that. Yeah, like they put an OBX Outer Banks sticker around the middle of it that said dog. Yeah, Black Dog Rum. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. All right, my friend, I appreciate you playing that game with me. I know that you hate it. Sorry. I
No,
was going to ask you
I was
what the student. What?
I was expecting to try and have to remember what the rest of Culto Cree,
Oh,
like the whole
yeah,
incantation, was going to be.
right? Yeah, that was the other thing. I was explaining this to my wife. She did not watch this with me. I was explaining it to her that at the end of the movie, he has everyone recite the. I always assume that spells are in Latin, but recite whatever it is, and he remembers how to say it enough to tell everybody to repeat after him. I'm like, that's a little bit of a reach too. So as the movie goes on, again, we've established he's in jail. He gets out. The dean and the teachers have a little bit of a problem with the fact that he's just been in prison, but they're like they couldn't prove anything, and we need a track coach. And for some reason, the football coach is in on this, and so they go ahead and decide to let him be the track coach because at this point they need him. And then we see how bad the track team is and it, like overly like comically bad, which again it's a comedy movie. And then Blackbeard's like, I can fix this for you, and he's standing by his like his morals, and he's saying no, I'm going to take care of this. And Blackbeard's like, but I could help you. They go out to dinner. Blackbeard this was a very thin plot line where Blackbeard placed a $900 bet on their behalf by stealing the money out of her purse. And he's hiding. No one else can see him. Why is he hiding? I don't know. But he's hiding, and maybe he's hiding from Dean Jones. And he takes the money out of the purse, and he goes back into the back room, and he places the $900 bet. And I'm like, how are you going to cash this bet when you made it look like it was another guy? That's all messed up. But again, that's part of the storyline to get us to the MacGuffin, to get us to the money that's going to pay for the place. And then they you know they go into the place. They place the money, and they bet the money. And then when Suzanne Plachette realizes the money's missing, she goes to Dean Jones and says, hey, you took this money. He's like, no, it wasn't me, it was my invisible friend. I feel like at this
I was
point he
with
should have
you
been
the
able
whole
to
time.
right. I feel like at this point he should have had Blackbeard do a trick for her or something so she could be in on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Blackbeard refusing to do it would have been like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a lot of inconsistencies just for comic effect. And I mean, they had to pad out the story with some of ridiculously long set piece with the track meet.
Oh no, not just that one. The track meet is ridiculously long. The runtime on this is an hour 47, which seems to me to be a little long for a movie of this genre, this age, this type. But it was an hour 47. They stretch out the track meet for sure, and then they stretch out the trip that they take to get the money from the mobsters. That's stretched out too long. The roulette is stretched out too long. Like all of that is stretched out too
Yeah,
long, I feel like. Um,
like this should have been an hour and a half movie, and they could have done that, but for some reason,
I
like
will
even
say I
the
feel like
epilogue.
yeah, I feel like most of the comedy though comes from this track meet. All of the stuff that
Oh yeah,
Blackbeard does, all of the effects and throwing the guy over the pole vault and all that kind of stuff. I feel like most of the comedy comes in here.
but it was repetitive. A lot of it, like there was some great like when they're all fighting over the batons. That's that's funny. Like the hot dog and like that's all great. But like, okay, we've got him throwing somebody over the high jump. Oh, now we're gonna have him throw over the pole vault. Oh, we're gonna have him throw the shot put and the javelin. Like you don't need to repeat the same type of things over and over again.
Yeah, but they did. And then again, the track team wins because at the very end, he's like, hey, I don't want you to help me. And then Blackbeard goes away. And then he's like, wait a minute, I'm realizing that if I stand on my morals here, then the Daughters of the Buccaneers lose their house. I'm upsetting more people than I'm helping. You go ahead and do your thing. And so he does his thing and he helps them win. And then they should get the money. But then Silky, after saying a bet's a bet and not letting Professor Baker out of the deal, he then welches on the bet because he wants to make sure that
Yeah,
the inn goes to him. And so he's a bad guy, Ron. I don't like it. He's bad.
yeah. I mean, he's just such a '60s stereotype. It's not even funny. And but like, is it just like I'm so used to The Godfather and Goodfellas that like his goons as like wise guys just don't feel threatening at all? Like they
Yeah.
really feel like the guys like work the men's department at like J.C. Penney as opposed to guys who are like the muscle at an illegal casino.
Yeah. Let's talk about like we talked about a lot of the effects were good, right? At least for the time, they seemed very good. Whether it was the props moving, or the set pieces, or the vibe and the mood and all that kind of stuff, there were a lot of them that were good. There was one that stood out to me that I just immediately said,
I don't like this.
and it was the one where they go back to get the money. Dean Jones's character, Steve Walker
I
seems weird to say, but Steve Walker goes back with Blackbeard to the
the
mob
punch
hideout.
and then the that looked
Yeah,
like my camera when we first started filming tonight.
yeah, really weird, right? So here's the scene. We see the guy actually behind the window, and then he's gonna punch him, and then it's like now the guy's green screened on here, and then all of a sudden,
He's in
and I'm gonna
soft focus.
yeah, I'm gonna cut away for a second because of YouTube, but let's go back to this. After he punches him, uh, he then like gets a black eye immediately, like so weird, and then the
Like
door
I don't
on him.
I was the like whole wavy effect just to kind of distract you from the black guy appearing because that would have been a fine kind of dissolve, but maybe the dissolve didn't work, so they had to motion blur it or whatever that was. But like
Yeah,
the
all
knocking
I
down the
mean,
door, that's a great effect, like the way it collapses and stuff.
yeah, and
It's
then the footprints on the door, like you were talking about the footprints on the sand, the footprints on the door, that was a great effect too. But there's something weird about that one scene. It's like they went to too much trouble to make that happen. And then again, here's the footprints on, or here's the scene again. But then when they knock down the door and the footprints on the door, like
yeah, that's
that
amazing. That's a
yeah,
great practical effect even today.
yeah. So they break in to get the money. The Silky doesn't want to give him the money. And this is another point where like Blackbeard's trying to figure out how to break into the safe, and I'm just thinking, can you not walk through walls? Can you not appear in there and then appear back out? Because he appears in places from time to time. Like what I don't know the rules, but obviously we don't want that to happen here because we need the story extended. But he goes, look, you can't have the money, but I'm gonna give you $900. I'm gonna let you go play roulette, and then they're gonna fix the roulette game. Suzanne Plachette's character doesn't understand that Blackbeard is real, so she's like, no, I'm gonna play this my way. That was a little bit of a frustrating thing because it again drew it
Yeah,
out unnecessarily, and made her look a little
and the
like
way
she needed to be in on it.
and then the way he's manipulating the game at first doesn't make it where he's moving the bets instead of moving the ball, which
Right.
they eventually do, which makes more sense. But yeah, that dragged out, and also I didn't feel like we had that time crunch till this scene like, oh, it has to be done by midnight. Like, didn't appear till then.
Yeah. Another like seemingly unnecessary scene is the one where Dean Jones has finger guns and starts shooting them at the guys because they don't have real guns. And then, yeah, that was weird, right?
Okay, that reminded me, and obviously it came later in reality, but do you remember a, I think it's Jim Belushi and John Ritter, I think it's Jim Belushi and John Ritter from the 80s, movie called like Real Men or something like that,
Vaguely.
about the CIA meeting up with aliens, and Ritter, this is a complete tangent, but Ritter is like this. He's a doppelganger for an agent who was killed, so Jim Belushi has to escort him to meet the aliens, and they're getting attacked by Russian agents and stuff.
Yeah.
And at some point, Ritter's being and he just starts doing finger guns, and he's taking out the Russian agents, but he doesn't know there's like a sniper helping him behind, so he thinks he's actually like taking them out with the guns, and it reminded me of that oddly, just because that was one of those movies I loved as a kid that probably can't even find on any kind of streaming services today, just because it's such an obscure '80s movie.
Yeah, I would imagine so. The fight scene that they have in with Blackbeard when he's fighting the guys after the others get away with the money. This is the kind of thing that I think probably every little kid in the theater was like roaring the first time this happened with all of these effects and throwing the bad guys around and like the wheel going up the guy. I don't know why that happened, but there's just a lot of like little things about throwing the guys left and right and they're pretending like I love when they slam a painting over a guy's head like this is a beating. Like, oh no. I mean, that feels like it would rip pretty easily. And then the other guys are like fighting the air and they're like, what are we fighting?
Canvas is tough, dude.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll acquiesce on that one. Um, but they're fighting back and forth in what looks to be the world's worst casino. If this is a sign of things to come, I'm glad he didn't win in the end to get his casino because this was awful. And then this seems again very like like a
It's
bit with
all Abbott
him.
and Costello kind of stuff.
Yeah, with him like spitting out the coins. So they've been defeated. The other thing that cracked me up is that the banker is at the house at midnight to
Yeah.
claim the mortgage. And so he's there with his stopwatch and he's like, nope, I'm not going to give you a minute on this one. We're going to be here at midnight. I play by the rules. And then they come up on the beach. And I actually love the exchange here where Suzanne Plachette puts the purse on him and then grabs the mortgage from him. I thought that was
And he
pretty
doesn't
cute.
check the money. I think at that point, just kind of like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The picture frame was heavy wood, also said Ronald. So he's backing you up on that one. Uh, the more you watch this movie, all the plot problem stuff goes away, says Carrie. Yeah, again, I mean, this is what we do on Deep in the Plus, but it doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the movie. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of these things I'm like, now that I'm looking at it more critically, this is a thing, but that's the fun. That's the fun part of it. I do think, again, a lot of the practical effects, the boat coming up on shore, that was very cool. The footprints, like we talked about before, that were, popping up in the sand, like that was kind of cool. At least this is the kind of thing that I think Suzanne Plachette should have seen earlier so that she understood
Yeah.
that he wasn't crazy. But then he gets there and he puts the incantation on everybody and says, repeat after me. And he didn't think till now to do that for her. And then they can all see him. This is where it gets weird, weird, weird for me, Ron. And you were talking about this early on is I was under the impression there was a point in earlier in the movie where he's talked into doing this because these are his ancestors, his great granddaughters, and he wants to make things right for them and do something good for them. But then once he manifests here, it's almost like he's hitting on all of them. And that they're
Yeah.
like
And
weak
it's
in the knees about it too. They're like, oh my goodness, like oh great grandfather, you're such a catch. Like what? Like
I mean, it
maybe
doesn't
it's
seem.
the ancestors of the crew, I guess, but it still feels like
I don't know. it's also what 6 to 8 generations, which is barely related at all, but it's still very creepy in that sense. And maybe coming from him would make more sense than like the old ladies fawning over him. But
Yeah, apparently it says we're no longer
triggered it again.
being. Yeah, we triggered it again, I guess. So we are back up and running. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we've been doing this show for 4 years, and we used to get flagged a lot. So I would always be careful about how much video we showed. Uh, Fire Chief said Rob didn't pay the mortgage before midnight. Ugh, got me. He got me. Um, and David Lung says, and we're out of YouTube jail. Yes, we are out of YouTube jail.
Wait, also, I
Um,
just thought about it. They still have the banker to pay off the mortgage, but didn't they at one point say Silky had already bought the mortgage from the bank, like during the party scene? Or did they say he's trying to? But I thought they said he did already.
Maybe, but I think what would have happened is if they didn't pay off, and again, I'm no mortgage broker, but I think if he didn't pay it off, they didn't pay it off by midnight, it would have defaulted to Silky because he had pre-bought it or something. But as long as they paid off the loan by midnight on that night, it became theirs.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
of all the threads to pull, I'm not sure I'm pulling at that one. However,
Well, I write
just
mortgages, so
oh, okay. Just to wrap this up and put a bow on it, he's going around and he's hitting on all the daughters of the Buccaneers, and then he burns the mortgage, and then he heads off. And we assume at this point the curse is broken because he's done a good deed finally. Like that was the curse. I don't see proof that the curse is lifted, but he gets in a boat and he starts to row off, and then he's disappeared, and then he gets into the mist and somehow comes across a pirate ship, and you can hear the pirates talking, and it's almost like he's been reunited with his crew. Is that what
yeah.
happened? Is that his heaven, or is he still in limbo, or
I
what's the explanation there?
I think that's what he would want. So maybe it is his version of a heaven, but
Yeah. The like I said, it's an hour and 47 minutes, so you feel like you had enough time to tell the entire story, but in the end, it feels like the end kind of fell apart a little bit. Um, and I think that that's important to keep that together. Like everything happened the way it should. They now know Dean Jones isn't crazy. Um, they got the money to save the inn. Blackbeard has his redemption. Everything's good. All of that works. But again, the flirting with his ancestors and then the pirate ghost ship both confused me a little bit in the end, and I was like, wait, what just happened?
yeah, no, it's an oddly paced movie, and I think that's why this is kind of in the Disney B list. It's not the Love Bug or the Dexter Rileys. It's not like one people go to.
By the way, I don't know what Disney Plus recommended to you afterwards, but this is what it recommended to me.
This seems to be your default.
Yes, because that's what happened after Oz, right? Was like when you
Yeah.
and I did Return to Oz, I went to Mickey Mouse Club. They just want me to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I love Mickey Mouse. Why not? Let's enjoy some Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. But yeah, that's kind of
Honestly,
funny.
I don't actually watch. I don't think a single one of these I've ever done on the show I've watched on Disney Plus because I own copies of all of them. So it just
Oh,
comes up on that.
gotcha. Well, again, these are the suggested movies it has for you after you watch it, and this feels right. Like the Treasure Island one again, because of the pirate connection, the absent-minded professor, Shaggy Dog, Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, That Darn Cat, Parent Trap, and Love Bug all feel like they're in this same nostalgic, classic Disney genre, but I just feel like this one's like the stepchild. Like it's been left
Yeah.
out of the annals of all the rest of these things. I don't think it gets the recognition and the love that the rest of these movies do, and I'm not really sure why, because it falls in between them. It's like if it happened years after or years before maybe, but it falls in between, like it's a year later when the love bug happens.
Yeah, I mean, not. It's there were just so many of these. Some of them are obviously going to get just kind of shuffled under the carpet because they weren't. They were still making what, an animated film every couple years, but they were still putting out a few of these a year and producing the TV stuff. There's like, if someone had told me this had been one that they made for World of directly for World of Disney, would you have been surprised?
No, probably not. But again, it's a yeah. I don't know. We'll pass final judgment on this one in a second, but I do want to thank everybody for bearing with us on this one. Again, I know because of the storm, we just felt like it was going to be a little tone deaf if we were having a conversation about Blackbeard's ghost while there was a catastrophic event happening. So thank you guys for bearing with us on that one. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Sunday night for Park Center, and then we'll be back again next Wednesday night for another Deep in the Plus. Coming up on Deep in the Plus, we did Girl versus Monster last week, Blackbeard's Ghost this week, Edward Scissorhands with Desi next week, and then in 2 weeks is a Mickey Mouse Halloween Spooktacular, then Emperor's New Groove, and then Agatha House of Harkness. A lot of spooky, although I've been called into question either by Ron or Patrick, I don't remember which, about the validity of the Emperor's New Groove being part of the spooky season.
There is no bad time to watch Emperor's New Groove. It is probably my absolute favorite. It is not the best, but it is my absolute favorite Disney animated film.
Okay. I'm honestly, I'm surprised at myself that we haven't done that one yet. We've done almost 300 reviews over the past 4 years, and honestly, it is good. So we'll
By all
definitely
accounts,
be
it
doing
doesn't make
that.
any sense.
Okay. You're quoting. I got a quote for you. You regard me strangely, sir. Is something amiss? When he said that, I was just like, what? Anyway, all right. So we've talked about this movie. We talked about the director. We talked about the nostalgia. We talked about the cast. We've talked about the whole thing. And so, Ron, this is the point. This is the time. Thank you guys for watching at home. We appreciate you. Thanks to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS at WDWNT Interglobe Society. Thank you guys for being with us. We appreciate you. But here it is. I need to know, Ron, if somebody walked up to you on the street and said, I need to find something to watch on Disney Plus, would you recommend this movie?
I kind of would. I mean, it's not going to be at the top of the list, but I feel that kind of question is like, I've watched the big ones. What am I missing? And this is one of those ones, like we were talking about Candle Shoe. I'd say like this over Candle Shoe. I like Candle Shoe, but like this is one of those ones like if you're just starting to get into the deep vault, this is it. This is a good start for that because it's actors people are gonna know. It's a lighthearted story, and it's just a fun thing. It's something I think a lot of people can just get.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what, for me, I told you from the beginning I had not seen this movie before. I'm glad I did. I feel like it's been a missing piece for me because it's one of these things, like I said, that comes from a director that was a big part of the kind of fabric of what I love about Disney. It's got that feel, that vibe, and it's like discovering a classic that you didn't know existed. So it was a fun watch, and I was surprised at that. So again, there's some silliness to it that is fun, and there's some silliness that I'm like, what are we doing here? But I think overall, the comedy is there, the acting was good. For the most part, though the kid who played like the captain of the track team was a little bit off. But anyway, it was probably in character of the time. I had a good time with it. I'm glad that I watched it, and I feel like I've associated this in my head with you because I know that you had done a review on this for another show, and so I was like, I need to talk to Ron about this one. I'm glad you talked to us about this, and we can put this now
Yeah.
in the Deep in the Plus catalog of stuff that we've discussed. So thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. Any
No,
final
no
thoughts?
problem. No, I actually had thought we had done this one a while ago on this show, so glad to finally get it done because it's one I don't think most people know, and I think it's for our audience, it's one they probably should be drawn to.
Yeah. Um, Carrie said, then you go into the Ugly Dachshund with the same leads. Again, honestly, I'm a little embarrassed. I don't think I've ever watched that one.
I literally think they came all like Steven. I think Stevenson and the crew, the cast and crew, just came right off Ugly Dachshund straight into this. I think.
Yeah. Well, that'll go on the list. I know that we've done a lot of this type of movie. So if you guys want to go back and look at some of our other reviews of The Parent Trap, actually we did the, the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap. We didn't do the original Parent Trap, but a lot of these others we've done a lot. The Love Bug, Shaggy Dog, some of those. Check out deepintheplus.com at any time to get all of those reviews, and we appreciate it. Hopefully, again, you join us Sunday night for Park Center. That'll be live on Sunday night at 9 p.m., and then we'll be back here for another Deep in the Plus next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Thank you guys. Have a great weekend again. Hopefully everyone in Florida there is safe, that the recovery happens quickly, and everybody can regroup, and we can be over hurricane season, because it's definitely been a rough one. So thoughts and prayers with everybody out there. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.